Long ago, 5 men set out from their own paths to achieve their own destinies. Now they are brothers, united under one cause. Alone they are strong, together they are unbreakable. They are bonded by metal.
Hey, welcome back to Bonded by Metal. Yours truly, Nick Weiser, aka some like to call me Toxic Nick. And of course, I got the Disciple of Rock with me, and we're going to be talking about bands who we would like to see Megadeth tour with for their final US headline tour. When they decide that it's over, it's over. And this is a fun one. So I guess you could say it's dream building. Whatever. I'm going to always look at it from a bit of a business perspective while also throwing in some stuff that kind of makes sense. I like to blend some old with some younger, but who knows what Disciple will have. But before we get to that, sir, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing awesome today. A lot going on in the music world. Excited to talk about one of the fun ones where we don't really have to have the correct opinion. We can kind of go let loose and just have some fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love doing these types of videos. They're fun. We want to get into a deep analysis. We get to just kind of spout off stuff, which never for me gets old. I like doing these types of videos on the evergreen territory. And this is hot off the heels of our now highest viewed video yet at over 2,300 views, the Megadeth #1 Billboard video. So I thought, you know what? Why not get into this? So without further ado, Disciple of Rock, sir. Why don't you tell us, the listeners, the viewers, who are 3 bands you would like to see open on Megadeth's final U.S. headline tour?
You want me to give all 3 right now, or do you want me to give time and explain each one?
You can explain if you want to have an explanation.
Okay,
go ahead, attach it. Sure.
So let's start off with the most unlikely one, and maybe the one that may match the least. There's a newer, heavier metal band out there called Tail Gunner.
Okay.
That if you're on Instagram, and maybe it's just me because I follow them on Twitter and I don't listen to them a ton, but they're always getting recommended to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully that's a sign they're an up and coming band. So, hey, let's throw a new band in there that no one's heard of, because it doesn't steal the spotlight from Megadeth, but it also puts a spotlight on somebody who's going to be taking over the scene. They're young, they're young band. So there's some of that in there, because I'm a big proponent of, while I love seeing the Alice Cooper Judas Priest tours, I love seeing the big co-headlining tours. I love the whole idea of Testament and Overkill touring together. At the same time, I want to see newer bands, because I need to know, hey, who am I going to want to go see in 20 years? Who am I going to want to go see? Not 20 years, 10 years. So for me, I'm going to say let's do a younger band called Tail Gunner, who seem to be gaining some traction. Also just came out with an album this year. Now, I know Megadeth's final tour is not going to be this year, but, knowing how things go with albums, it can be a few years before an album comes out. While they're still on an album cycle, get them on a tour. Mm-hmm. So that's my first pick, and I'll just throw out my second pick. I think we should go through the urban, or maybe the cult legendary thrash band Flotsam and Jetsam.
Smoking.
An older band, but hey, an oldie but a goldie, right? They are
the new records are good.
Yeah, and even some of their older stuff, phenomenal. Like She Took an Axe is such a killer song. Mm-hmm. Like I said, they're an older band, but they're not as popular. Maybe they should be more popular. But if you know, and if you're going to a Megadeth show, odds are you're going to know Flotsam and Jetsam. I would assume you would. So that would be a fun draw, because that way I'm going to get there early to go watch Flotsam and Jetsam. So that's an idea. And my ultimate pick would be the band Overkill. I know I mentioned them earlier, but I think Overkill works for Megadeth's final tour, because I do think, to make my counter argument to the Tail Gunner pick, it would be nice if you had someone who's really well known, but it's not enough to co-headline for Megadeth, right? Because for as good as Flotsam and Jetsam are, and as nice it would be to get an up and coming, the spotlight, if you are going on your final tour, it would be nice to have a 1-2 punch. right? That people are going to be blown away by that lineup for your last tour because it is a last hurrah. And I think Overkill would be a phenomenal opening act. Now, I'm sure there's going to be multiple acts. It's not going to be Megadeth and it's going to be Megadeth and a bunch of other bands. But if we're talking about who's like the big, I guess, the second billing band is what I'm going to be looking at. I really think Overkill would be
the direct support, they call it. The second last is the direct support.
Yeah, I think Overkill would be my number one choice.
That's a great number one choice. And why I say that is not just because of the quality of Overkill's music, but one, the first time I ever saw Overkill was the first time I ever saw Megadeth. That was 20 years ago. That was either September or October of 2006. It was Gigantour. That was when Megadeth do this like traveling festival show, and they had all these bands with them. And some were bands who were pretty big, some who were not as big, some bands who were kind of trying to get their foot out again. You had newer bands at the time like Into Eternity. You had bands who were, I guess you could say, hot on the scene at the time, like Opeth and Arch Enemy. And then you had bands who were getting big, like Lamb of God. And then you had bands like Overkill, who were big in the 80s, but kind of like they had a bit of a dwindling fan base, and they're trying to get on the uprise again. So that was my discovery to Overkill, and I fell in love with them in that show. And I've only seen them one more time since then. That was 2013 when they did a co-headline with Creator. So it would be cool for me personally to see them again for Megadeth's first time and last time to be Overkill. So for your sake and my sake, I hope you were right on that one. Even though I didn't pick them, I wish now that happens.
And I'm seeing Overkill next month with Testament. And so I'm going to get to see them, but I'm almost positive I'm going to love Overkill live. And like I said, I don't care whether I've seen the band. I want Megadeth to get a proper band to say goodbye to them, right? You can't have like, I guess for a good example I can give is one of the worst opening acts I ever saw. Well, I wouldn't say they were bad, but I saw the Mongolian band, The Who, open for Iron Maiden. And they're interesting, but I'm sorry, they don't have the power to carry for Maiden, right? Maiden needs somebody big to open for them, right? And again, The Who, they're fine. It just got boring after 3 songs. So I do want to see someone that will carry the weight to be a direct support to Megadeth. And Overkill can absolutely deliver that.
Yeah, I agree. Overkill would be a very stellar opener. Great picks, dude. Hell yeah. No, seriously.
I want to hear what you have.
Picks. Okay, so for my first one, I'm gonna choose actually a band. I was almost gonna choose a younger act, but I decided I was gonna do this one band. If we want to go into that bonus band, I'll do it. But I decided we're gonna keep it. Normally, I'd like to have the up and comer, but for this one time, like, you know what? We gotta do this one band because though they're very lesser known, it's a band that has history with Megadeth. And now, of course, I'm referring to Sanctuary. Their singer, Warrell Dane, was a essential singer. He passed in the 2010s. They've replaced him since then. I'll be seeing him a few months at Hell's Heroes myself. Their first record, Refuge Denied, was produced by Dave Mustaine in the 90s. So I would love to see Sanctuary play to a much bigger tour than they normally do. So would they do a tour again? I don't know, but I feel like if they were to do one, this would be the one. They still got half the original lineup. A, B, they're starting to get active again. C, why not bring it back around with one more time with Dave Mustaine? And funny enough, Megadeth has brought out both Warrell Dane's bands, his original band Sanctuary, and then his following band Nevermore, who also played the 2005 Gigantour. So I feel like it would be cool to finally bring Sanctuary one last time to show up. Hey, not only they're still around, they still got it. So I'm going to go with Sanctuary for the first one.
And if I'm not mistaken, because I remember looking up a Christian metal band like Playlist, aren't they a Christian band, Sanctuary?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I've never looked into that part of it. I like the music. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. That would be knowledge unforeseen to me.
Yeah, like I said, because I know they popped up in a place. Maybe they just had one Christian-esque song. But if it was a Christian band, that would be a very good fit for Megadeth, especially because Dave does have a thing about playing with particularly how do we say this correctly? Desecrating bands.
Yeah, I mean, he takes it case by case. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of his interviews. He takes it case by case. He did tours with Slayer after that. Obviously, Slayer sing about death, Satan, and war. And even though Tom Araya doesn't actually think about those things outside of Slayer, he's actually a hard Catholic. Um, I don't know. I wasn't looking into those things with Sanctuary. I was just kind of looking based off the music, but maybe he does consider that. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll ask Dave. But for my second pick, I chose Exodus. One, they're about to gear up for a Canadian version of the tour. Exodus is a thrash metal staple. And this is where the business part comes in. So obviously, A, you got quality. B, you also got a band whose next album comes out in a month. So, and it's the return of their singer Rob Dukes from the 2000s into the early 2010s, who's their third frontman. So I think Exodus would be great. Gary Holt and Dave Mustaine go way back. They're some of the architects of thrash metal. So I'm looking at the quality. I'm looking at the time of the record release, and I'm also looking at the history there. Exodus is also one of those bands who should have had their due as much as Metallica and Megadeth. And even guys like Kirk Hammett would agree with me on that Exodus were very pivotal to the scene. Obviously, Kirk Hammett himself was an original member of Exodus. So I'm glad guys like Kirk are still very mindful of that, because Exodus, some ways, were one of the very first bands. They just had some unfortunate issues where their album got pushed back over a year. So they were considered late to the scene, even though they actually weren't. And then for my third and final band, and once again, I'm having business kick in, but I'm also having history come in. And I think, to my knowledge, they have a new album coming out as well. And very funny enough, they're going to be on that Canadian tour as well. So hopefully, here's hoping they bring them over to the U.S. as well, is Anthrax. Anthrax is a big draw. They're one of the big four bands. So to have two big four bands, Anthrax is a big four band. Not as big as Megadeth, but they're bigger than your Testaments, your Exoduses, and they have a very sizable following. So, let's put it this way. When Anthrax plays Chicago, they can headline a venue like 4,000 or 5,000 on their own in Chicago. Megadeth will do somewhere between 5,000 to 8,000. Put them together, you could get 10K, maybe more. So, if you want to maximize your audience. And once again, tons of history there. There are two of the big four bands. That's a big deal. And also, Anthrax knows how to get a crowd going. They know how to really get pumped up. Like when Megadeth are now finally going to be the main course meal. They're the really well done appetizer. Like, imagine if you're having like a Wisconsin restaurant, some cheese curds, some of the best damn cheese curds you have. Anthrax is the cheese curds of this tour package. You're like, holy shit, those cheese curds are so damn good. Like, the first band was your soda or whatever is your drink, and the second band is the sauce. Anthrax is the damn cheese curds. Yes, I just made a food analogy work with all these bands, and it does freaking make sense. Megadeth is now you're going in for the steak. So Anthrax, Exodus, Sanctuary, history, older bands, two fairly well known, one much lesser known. If you want to throw in a PS band, hey, quick name, who would you be? Off the top of your head, just for a little bonus sakes. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. We'll do a quick bonus.
Okay. It's going to be weird, but I could see it working. The all-female band Burning Witches, and maybe that's just because I'm going to see them next month. Okay. So they've been on my mind, but I could see them.
Okay. All right. Burning Witches. I'm going to go with this is very wishful thinking. There's this band from Indiana. They're kind of like a blackened thrash metal band called Wraith. And they put out an album a few years ago called Fueled by Fear. I saw them open for Midnight and Exciter, and I saw them last year at Milwaukee Metal Fest. And you want to talk about a young thrash band that knows how to get a crowd wild up and pump and just fast, quick, anthemic type of songs, fist banging type of shit. Wraith is really killer. They only have a few albums, but I could see these guys definitely playing to a big crowd and winning that crowd over. So Wraith would be my bonus band. If you haven't looked at them, you should. I think they're excellent. I've had the privilege of seeing them twice so far. So once again, that one's a bit more wishful thinking. Some might argue Sanctuary is. but I would say those would be the bands. All
Yeah,
right,
the
so
PS
those
band.
would be our bands. Fellow listener, fellow viewer, whatever you want to call yourself. What are your ideal bands for opening for the Megadeth US Online Channel? Now, if you're someone who's watching this, you're from Canada, well, you're getting Anthrax and Exodus. Are you from the European countries? Want you to put your European bands? If from the US and you hate our picks, well, you're going to tell us your picks anyway. I'm not going to say to put them in the chat. You're already going to do that anyways. But I just want to say thank you for watching this video. I'm Nick Weiser. That's a disciple of rock. You lay down your souls to the gods, rock and roll.
Right? Wrong.